There is a loud rumble in the forest. Fennel runs to Alissa's house because Viola won't be home and he can be alone with Alissa, but he was disappointed. Alissa already had an orc sitting there drinking tea and cookies. Fennel was very angry with Orc and punched him. Fennel apologized for the harm done and asked Orc what he was doing here. Orc explained that he was asked to fix the furniture. Fennel asked Orc to go home if he fixed everything. The Orc couldn't go home because Viola had asked him to interfere with Fennel in every way possible. Fennel was angry that the Orc was letting himself be bossed around, but he had picked up on the fact that orcs like to be bossed around by girls. Then they talked about the elves and Orc said that he would love to go to the elven village, but Fennel shattered his dreams and said that he couldn't find young elven girls there, because only old men lived there. There are no prospects in the village and that's why young people leave there all the time. Orc was very upset by this information and Fennel cheered him up by saying that besides the old men there are young women living there, but they are all married and have children. Orc realized that there is a paradise with MILFs. Alissa told him about the tree in the village. It's huge and all the elves have been praying to it for centuries. The air is so pure in this place that everyone feels purified from the inside. Fennel added that this tree is a date spot, a playground and a place for old people to hang out. Alissa lived once in the elven village when she was studying magic. Her parents were friends with Fennel's older brother, so she lived with him and that's how she met him. The Orc asked Fennel if he had any sisters and Fennel said he could introduce him to his brother. His brother is a martial artist and likes to pump his muscles. Alissa commented that elves are mostly very handsome. Fennel and his brother are an example of that. Fennel was embarrassed by Alissa's words, and Orc was dreaming about elves and thought that elves don't poop, but Fennel convinced him otherwise and added that they also fart. After that the boys apologized to Alissa for fooling around a lot. Orc suggested changing the subject and talking about magic. Elven magic can achieve the same results, but in a different way. Witches use internal magic, while elves rely on natural energy. The elves have their own unique culture and tradition. Fennel has noticed that the old men can be annoying with their superstitions and customs. They'll brew a potion, call it mono soup, and try to feed it to you, convincing you that it will cleanse your system. Alissa said that magic is cool, but elves are also good at archery. Fennel said that the village is sometimes very boring, so they spend all day shooting arrows. Since there are no other things to do in the village, the skill of archery is quickly perfected. The Orc was resentful of Fennel for ruining his dreams by criticizing his homeland. Fennel loves his village, but as soon as he hears someone rave about it, he wants to talk about all the disadvantages. He also gets very angry as soon as someone speaks badly about the village, and this is probably the love for the country, when only you can criticize it because it is yours. After Alissa's words that she loves the elven village very much, Fennel wanted to be home and suggested Alissa to go to the village. Suddenly Viola and Phoenix came and saw that Fennel was close to Alissa. Phoenix started attacking and interfering with Fennel. He felt bad that he didn't get a chance to be alone with Alissa, but then he realized that the atmosphere was different this time and he heard love from Alissa. The Orc told him that she was talking about the village, but Fennel didn't listen to him and started jumping for joy, thinking he had succeeded. The next day, Viola received a letter from Uncle Pond, saying that a lot of sweet potatoes had grown and needed to be dug up. When they arrived at the place, it turned out that there was nothing to dig, as the potatoes had come out of the ground by themselves. Alissa asked what had happened and Ponda asked to keep the information secret, because he was afraid that his wife would find out. He told her that he is fond of farming and recently he decided to take up breeding, but he was not successful. One day in a bar, a witch sold him a magic fertilizer that made potatoes alive. Alissa contacted her friend through a magic ball and her friend explained that it was mandrake fertilizer. The friend apologized to Ponde for the side effect of her fertilizer and promised to fix it, but Ponde didn't want to fix anything because these potatoes seemed very nice and sweet to him. These potatoes multiply without his intervention and run on their own, but the downside is that these potatoes scream and are inconvenient to pick because they are a bit naughty. Alissa freaks out and goes to Lyra to settle the matter, but Ponda stops her and asks her not to say anything because they are completely harmless. Then he showed her the cross, where the potatoes lay, which only the chosen ones would get. Alissa did not like all this and asked to see another potato. Ponda pointed to another plot of land where Barrow's potatoes were growing. This potato reminded Ponda of a serpent, which symbolizes infinity. Viola thought that this potato might live forever, but Ponda explained that it did not, it just had its own tail in its mouth. Viola heard a pleasant odor and Ponda immediately pointed to his perfume, but Viola found the source and it turned out to be a potato that ignites itself because it wants to be eaten fried. Ponda called it a fryer. Alissa ran to get water and wanted to stew the potatoes, but Ponda explained that this fire was not dangerous to the environment. Ponda then showed them the mermaid potatoes. If you cut a potato and put it in water, it would not darken. Viola asked to see more harmless species and Panda showed them a slug potato. Its only downside is that it turns into something creepy when you dig it up. Panda suggested that Alissa and Viola dig up their own potatoes, but Alissa wanted to turn to her friend to fix it because she thought running potatoes were not okay. Panda threw himself into tears and explained that his son was in transition and had stopped paying attention and those potato babies had gratefully accepted all his love. Viola realized that because of the child's detachment, the parents were withdrawing into farming. Viola felt very sorry for Uncle Panda and added that she would not have survived if her mother had stopped paying attention to her. Viola and Panda tearfully begin to convince Alissa to leave the potatoes. Suddenly, Lyra appears and started telling them what a stupid husband she has. Panda didn't understand how she was here, since she was supposed to go to town. Lyra explained that Panda was acting suspiciously, so she tried to finish all the business quickly and added that a wife should accept all manifestations of her husband's love. Lyra decided to show him her anger and told him how she pulled out the chosen potato with the root. Eventually Alissa's friend returned the potatoes to their normal appearance and Viola and Alissa received the potatoes as a gift as they had originally planned. In the evening they had a baked potato dinner and ate it for another week. One day Alissa came home and saw the fences in her vegetable garden. She walked on and suddenly there was a loud, nasty scream. It turned out to be mandrake. It's a plant that looks like a human and is heavily used in magic and alchemy. When it is dug out of the ground it emits a loud and nasty scream. Alissa didn't understand where she got the mandrake in her vegetable garden, because she didn't plant it in her vegetable garden. Viola quietly came up behind her, shut Alissa up and led her to the shelter. Alissa was eager to explain, and Viola told her that her experiments with magic had gotten out of hand. Then they saw the giant potatoes that were trampling their vegetable garden. Viola told a story about how Alissa's friend had tried to improve the fertilizer that Panda was using and she asked Viola to test the fertilizer on her mandrake. Viola didn't know how much fertilizer to use, so she poured out as much as she could. Viola came up with a plan to defeat the giants. While they were fighting, Viola wanted to attack them suddenly. These potatoes are fighting at full strength and they realize it. Viola was confident that this battle would be the last one. Eventually the two spuds merged into one and Alissa summoned her friend to fix the situation and Viola wanted to merge with Phoenix, but Alissa didn't allow it. After that, Viola was obsessed with the idea of merging for a while longer.